Good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone, wherever you are tuning in from. Welcome to the very first professional learning series for the fall of 2021-2022. We are so glad you could be here today. My name is Lily Mora, and I'm a professional learning manager at CSTA, and I am so thrilled that you guys are taking time out of your busy day to join us and to learn about some resources that can help you celebrate the upcoming upcoming Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month, which begins September 15th and it runs through October 15th. In the chat, you will see the slides for today. It's not too many, but there are a few things that might be really useful for you. So go ahead and click on that and store it somewhere where you remember, just in case you want to come back to where are all the resources we're going to talk about. So today we have two amazing guests. They are returning guests from last week at CSTA Engage. They curated a handful of resources for educators to check out and see if they want to implement as they celebrate Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month, and they are back to go a little deeper into a few of these resources. But before I hand it over to them, we have a quick welcome activity, and this welcome activity is called Hoy Me Siento, and so in Spanish that means today I'm feeling. And so in the chat, we would love for you to introduce yourself and then let us know how you're feeling in Spanish. So, for example, Lily Mora, hoy me siento emocionada, which means I am excited, which I am very excited today. So we would love for you to participate. In the next two slides, you'll see a list of different feelings. This first slide on slide 3 has, it shows you what the emotion is, but on slide 4, there's a ton of them that are both English and Spanish if you're looking for another emotion. So check the slides out if you want to look at, or some of you are fluent, or some of you may be conversational. Go ahead and tell us how you're feeling on this 6 p.m. Central Time on the 13th of September. Don't be shy. That's one of our emotions too. If you're feeling shy, then you could say hoy me siento tímido. We're so glad you're happy, Yvonne. BT is feeling at peace. Love it. BT, hold on to that and remember that when the second baby arrives. Ooh, awesome. Some of you are tired. Let's see. Some of you are feeling confident. Thank you, Jason. Okay, perfect. So that's a quick activity. If you would like to use this at one of your classes, go ahead and rip it off from this slide deck and put it onto the one you're going to use. We want this to be something useful for you, and hopefully, I mean, especially when you're celebrating like Hispanic Latinx heritage, this is one way you can have a different type of welcome activity where kids can even learn a new language. So without further ado, I want to introduce our two lovely presenters, Yvonne De La Pena, who is coming from TECHNOLOchicas, which is from NC WITS, and then we have Yolando Lozano from CSTA New Mexico and a co-founder of Computer Science Alliance. So take it on, ladies.
Do you want to go first, Yvonne? Let's. I think I'm just going to introduce myself because I kind of cheated a little bit and invited my friend Betsy Hernandez to be here. So she, on a day-to-day, teaches computer science to middle school, right? You're doing middle school right now, Betsy? Yes. And so I cheated a little bit and I invited her so she could talk about her experience and share her resources. But my name is Yvonne De La Pena. I am currently with NCWIT, helping lead the TECHNOLOchicas initiative, which is an initiative to create, bring awareness to Latinas in tech and to inspire young women to come into tech. And so we mainly have, we have videos and we do presentations and maybe quick workshops. And that's kind of like the resources that we have at this moment, but we are all like informal education. And I'm very happy to be here. This is my first time being here. I think it's also your first one doing in this series, right? So I'm excited. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. I'm Yolando Lozano. Let's see, I've moved around the country a lot, actually. So a shout out, I grew up in South America, but then when I was 12, I moved to Michigan. And then I lived in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I lived in Florida, and I went to college in Texas and in Pittsburgh. And then I worked at the Fed in DC. So I've lived and I worked in Boston. So I've moved around. I'm in Albuquerque now. And it feels a lot like Latin America. I will tell you, there are a lot of things about New Mexico that are like Latin America. We are a majority minority state, which is one of the reasons I actually was very interested in moving here. I like the whole melting pot feel. It's been wonderful to be surrounded by a lot of teachers with different backgrounds and just expanding my horizons in different ways. But anyway, and so I'm a classroom teacher now. I teach AP Comp Sci A and Comp Sci P. I started a robotics club. I do Cyber Patriots. I do Girls Who Code. So if you guys are interested in any of that stuff, let me know. I'm always trying to find new ideas and new ways to approach new audiences. Do we want to have Betsy come on and introduce herself? Is probably a good idea since she's going to be giving us a spiel. I'm going to bring her on board. I don't know. Let's see. So we have probably about 15 minutes each or so to kind of go into. There are a couple of options of lessons, and I wanted to talk mostly while we wait for. Let me know when Betsy's arriving. Oh, here you are. I'll let you go. I'll let you go instead.
So hello, my name is Betsy Hernandez. I'm a native New Yorker. And so my trajectory was that I didn't know I could become a scientist when I was young, just because everybody around me didn't know that that was a career path. And so I initially pursued medicine in City College. And while there, I learned that, hey, you can do research and you can become a scientist. And so later on, I switched careers and majors and schools. And so I went to Hunter College, where I graduated with a bachelor's in physics and mathematics, and was actively doing research, or am actively doing research in astrophysics since 2014. After graduating, I did the Helen Fellowship with Yvonne at the American Museum of Natural History, where half my time was teaching, mentoring high school girls in Python and a research project that was theoretical. And the rest of the time was working with people in the astrophysics department, working on my own research on a similar theoretical project. And then I went on to the Princeton postbac, where I continued doing research and continued my education. And then I became a middle school teacher because my whole goal from now till my last breath, is to encourage people of color, women, non-traditional, to pursue careers in STEM, right? Not just medicine, law, and engineering, which was what happened with me.
So I'll get started. If you guys have interest in something specific, but I was going to go over a specific lesson that I had pulled up and that I had found. I had mentioned it to in the last presentation that I did, but we have a page of resources that we can share with you guys that have lessons and other things. But this one was, I don't know, I guess I just found these lessons to be funny, entertaining, and all around, hopefully the students identified with them. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And unfortunately, I'm on my little computer, so I'm not used to this. Like, here we go. Actually, I'm going to share my whole screen now. All right. So this is the website I was talking about, and it was funded by an NSF grant. I can't say I really know the people, but through some NSF connections, I'm starting to get access to additional lessons and really interesting things that are already out there. The cool thing about this is as you look down, there's not a lot of depth in terms of the number of lessons there are, but this one, it has a PDF, it has the slides, and it has the case study. So let me just try to figure out how to actually close this, get over here and move my stuff around. I'm used to having multiple screens. I think I'm gonna have to stop sharing and reshare to switch tabs now. It's not letting me. Hold on. Yeah, I'm doing a rookie mistake here. Here we go. So go here. I think it's just that my computer is really slow. I've got a massive delay. So there's this slide deck, and let me go ahead and present. And it basically just goes over piece by piece all of the lessons. So, and this is meant for literacies in computers. So this is, it could be shown at any grade, but the idea is predominantly around an elementary audience. And the slides have both languages, so that if you have English language learners, it would help them also understand. You're going to talk about identify parts of Scratch and compare them to the parts of a telenovela. What is a telenovela? You're going to talk about how it's a soap opera and it has a storyline. There are different parts to the scene that you need to create with the students. This is a hilarious, I'm not going to play it right now, but if any of you have watched telenovelas, I think you would really, I don't know if any of you, I just remember when Maria del Barrio was a big thing and it was hilarious. Now, especially looking back on it and the overreactions and the extreme emotions and these conversations that were very confrontational. But anyway, it's something that most kids, Latin kids, grew up watching in their household. If it's not playing in their grandmother's TV, it's on playing on their aunts or somebody's. And so they talk about basically, how do we know this is a telenovela? And then, you're supposed to watch the piece and have a discussion around what would make it a telenovela. What's the difference between that and something? And then so you can act it out and get the emotions, the different pieces that might be happening around there, and then actually create your own background. So then you start transitioning the students. So, okay, let's start talking about what can we do with this? So what is Scratch? And let's introduce Scratch. This is a website where young programmers can program, make animations, they can make games, and there are other digital projects that they can make. And I'm going to jump to this page in a second, but I want to come down. And so as part of the English language class, the idea is you will actually talk about, as you're writing a story or writing the script, and we're going to go through and as a class create a project, and you're going to write your own script. Think about what the backdrop is going to be. What's it going to look like? What kind of characters do you need on your screen? What are those characters all about as you're creating those characters? What kind of dress are they going to have? What else is on the stage? Look at your script. How are you going to write the script? What is the dialogue going to look like? All of these pieces that you need to put together as part of a storyline that you're going to create. And so it gives the students a great opportunity to write their own story. And then we can go back, and then we can go to the projects. And so we click on that. And I had all this ready on my other site, but then you have a project that is already semi-started for students. They have basically, so you don't have to completely feel intimidated. You don't have to really understand all the pieces of the programming, but you can start with using this. You can have introduced Scratch in a previous lesson or not. It sort of depends on your comfort with Scratch and where you want to take it. But the idea is, you can take a look, you can make a copy of it and start from this. If I hit play, for example, here.
No lo puedo creer. Me traicionaste. Mi mejor amiga.
No fui yo, te lo prometo.
Yo sé que eras tú. Eres la única persona que sabía la identidad real de mi padre. Y ahora todo el mundo sabe
Que tu padre es Papá Noel.
me tengo que ir al Polo Norte.
So hopefully you could hear that. But it's a great start. And the idea is that right here, it explains a little bit about it. And then there are additional lesson pieces as you go back to the slides. You are basically guided to the breakdown of the actual lesson, how the pieces work together. The students can add, they can change the scene, obviously, and then you can have a discussion about, what is similar and different in Scratch, about una telenovela. I'm going to start speaking in both languages at the same time. I'm getting all like messed up my brain. You have, obviously you have the same things. You have a stage, you have the sprites, which are the characters. You have a script, which is something that you're typing in. You have the commands, which is like codes that you would have on a stage to get somebody to move or to do something. You have a costume that you dress up your sprite in Scratch, just like you have any costume that somebody would have to wear to get into character. And then you have the backdrop, which is also pre-telling some of the story, in addition to actual backdrop of the stage and props and things that are there in addition. So there are like little discussions that you can have and making connections to the real world and connections to scripts. So if you're introducing a new genre, or if you're going to introduce a different style of novel, maybe a dialogue style novel, some of the a play. I mean, I know that there isn't a lot of that happening in a lot of elementary schools, but I know my daughter's class, when they were in like 4th grade, they had to write a little play. This is one way that you could actually do a dual purpose thing of introducing an English language lesson, in addition to doing a Scratch lesson, in addition to make sure that the students have a subject that they identify with, and they write their own story. So the story is about something that they understand and they know, and that way they can bring their own context into it and have some fun with it. So anyway, the slides are there, the some of the lesson pieces are there. And I'm going to stop sharing. There you go. Just to talk about, to summarize a little bit, there are a number of other tools that are very, very similar as the students get more advanced. If you wanted to do something, this is a great place to scaffold and to bring in multiple storylines. I've also seen it used in history classes. I used it in my daughter's 5th grade New Mexico history class, and she had to bring the conquistadors and she had to bring the native population, and they had this whole discussion, and there was a battle, and she brought the pueblos, and she was able to create this whole scenario, and the whole class basically ended up doing things like bringing the New Mexico map into it and cutting and pasting a picture of it, and labeling places, historical places in New Mexico. So for each state's history class, you can do things like that, just bring in, but try to bring their story into it so that each student brings their storyline. Even though there's a history undertone, the student has the ability to adapt it, make changes, and bring their own story or her story in addition to the traditional line of story. There's also Alice, as you get, and I kind of showed a quick screen of it last time, and unfortunately it takes a little bit to load up. And so I don't want to take a whole lot of time. I'll try to load it up and maybe I'll show it at the end. But Alice has similar tools. The difference is that it's in Java, and so it's a little bit more advanced, but the medium is very similar to Scratch's. It's just what I would call an advanced Scratch tool. And you can have the students create their own storylines. There are animals in there, so they can write stories about animals. There are stories about, there are pictures of ancient history, there are current history, there are just trees and flora and fauna if they wanted to do something related to something in the biology space. There are pictures from related to the sun and the moon and space and some astrophysics kind of stuff. If they wanted to do something in 4th grade, I had students just place the planets in orbit and then have each one talk. And so they had to narrate and talk about who they were. I'm Pluto, I am the, of course they're not a planet anymore, but anyway, but grab each of the planets. I'm dating myself, aren't I? And just narrate a story that is relevant to them. So a lot of these tools currently have a lot to do with your customizing them, and you're taking the basic tool set and allowing the student to create their own storyline. And I will give, I'll give Betsy some time because I know I can just go on and ramble. So I'll make sure that I give, and I'll try to pull up the Alice tool so you guys can look at it in a bit. Do you want to take it away?
I wasn't sure if it was me. So what I'm going to show is, and I mentioned this before, the middle school where I'm a teacher called Creo College Preparatory Charter School does what is called advisory every morning, where students learn about current events, social emotional learning, and during Latinx Heritage Month, they get introduced to a variety of Latinx peoples from different backgrounds. And so I'm going to show one of those which I facilitated last year. And if there's time, there's one that I created for this year. Neither one are computer scientists, but they will be included when during my regular lesson, but I haven't created it yet. Okay. So we begin our advisory by welcoming our students and making sure that they're listening. And this was over Zoom since it was last year. And the person we were featured was AOC. And so in this case, either I would read it or call on students to read this slide. We typically include like a video in many of the lessons. And so this, we would say it's thinking if you recognize any of the places, because she travels around New York City. And so many of the students will recognize maybe some train stations, parks, projects, and so on. We include definitions. And for this activity, we were using Pear Deck. There was the option of logging into Pear Deck and having one of the students drag a red flag to which of the platforms they supported. Or I think in my case, I had the chat, and so I would read out loud and ask them to write down A through G, which of the platforms they supported themselves. We often include opinions given by the advisors, and I believe in this case, I said I voted because I want to make sure that people who are elected support things that matter to me as a woman, as a person of color, as part of the working class. And so healthcare for all, affordable housing, and other issues were important to me. And then we have several activities for the students. Again, I could either read the slide or have a student read it. And then at the end, we have a question. And they would, at the time, I would either ask them to write it in the chat or raise their hand to share their voice. So like, who should be allowed to immigrate in the US and why, to allow conversation. And what's in blue are what are called sentence starters, just to get students thinking. Sometimes I would, if it was too quiet, I would give an opinion and get the ball rolling. And this is another similar activity as the one before, where the question is, how would you change healthcare in the US? At the time, I think we were doing like a fashion show that week. And so we encourage students to wear something from a Latinx, a Spanish-speaking country. And that basically that Friday, we had on Zoom sort of an assembly, and we were able to show students what the selfies that they shared with us. At the end, we end with an affirmation before transitioning to the next period. And so that is one that I facilitated. This year, I'm just gonna scroll to where, this is the one that's coming up that I created. Since now that we're in person, there's less time for the students to transition because teachers have to move. There's just moving people. And so this advisory is about 15, 20 minutes. And so I featured Elizabeth Acevedo, who's a poet and author, born in New York. Currently, she's in Maryland. And so the question was because they have an opportunity to go to our library and get a book, would they be interested in getting a poetry book the next time they visited the library? And then we also have a video for the poem Hair, which is, I love this poem. And while the students are watching the video, thinking how does she achieve to include experiences or emotions in the poem of Hair. After the video, the goal is for them to talk with the classmate that's next to them, answering these two questions and then sharing them out. And as in these slides, we have a timestamp to make sure that advisors remain on track. And there's also some notes for them so that it's something that you can look over 5 minutes before you have to present it and know what to do. That's a goal. It's supposed to be easy, low lift for those that are facilitating this discussion. And for this one, I'm in charge for the advisory team this year. I'm in charge of academics. So pushing things that are academic. And so students will get a chance to look at their grades on this day. And these are just there's a video of how to do that and how we collect the laptops. Because in these two, it's the advisor that distributes But at the end, the last 3 minutes, we get assistance from the students. But those that are still seated, that are not helping collect the laptops, they get a chance to continue with the discussion until we get to the affirmation. Then goes on to the first period. And so this year, we're encouraged in all subjects to include at least twice a week. Something like what I did with Elizabeth Acevedo for our content. And so I will be including, I'm very grateful because I had like 2 or 3 computer scientists that I was like, I need more. And in the resources that were shared on Thursday, I saw many more. And I was like, I can do these. I can include this kind of content in my work. Oh, and finally, so for CS, because students were introduced to foods, countries, people during advisory, they had a chance for a term final project to do something on a person, place, something Latinx for their Scratch. And so they would use sprites. I showed them how to import sprites if they needed. Like there's a way to remove a background from a picture and upload it. So you're basically creating your own sprite and having dialogue and certain animations. So we had that last year. I released the floor.
Thank you, Betsy. That was amazing. We appreciate you not just because when you brought up AOC, she happens to be from that neighborhood, which is amazing that they can celebrate an individual during Heritage Month that is someone that literally next door. And then you also went into detail on like different ways that you can go deeper into what AOC represents. And what her career represents and her government, and how students can really have like these deep conversations about even very controversial ideas. So we appreciate you showing us how to do that, and how you guys have nicely organized that for students, and how like you said, another person can pick it up and run with it. That's amazing. Yvonne, did you want to share next? Yvonne?
Can I have 1 minute? I need to go open the door.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Okay, while Yvonne's doing that, I can definitely, Yolanda, are you there? Do you want to refer to the resource page that we have from last week?
Yes.
I'll put it on the screen just to show them where it's at.
So the lesson that I included is on this page, and it basically, we tried to put a resource page with some general lessons in Spanish if you actually wanted to do some stuff in Spanish. There are like exploring CS curriculum is in there. There is a lot of Scratch resources in here, as you might guess. For those of you who've been teaching it for a while, it's just a very versatile tool. And so you might as well take advantage of some of the pieces that other teachers have put together. And obviously the telenovela was just one more expansion on an idea. So if you haven't used Scratch yet, I highly recommend exploring it just because of the vast wealth of resources that is available. There's whole units of study for grades and things like that. There are also lessons, if you're trying to do something with code.org, there's also some of the lessons for the elementary school that have been translated. Most of the code itself is still in English, but at least the instructions, those pieces, and they're working more and more on getting an additional amount of that translated for students, especially for EL students. And then if you're interested, obviously we're always looking for people to add resources. So if you have any ideas, please feel free to add to it. The main thing right now that is available, I will say, has to do mostly around like what I was talking about, which was grabbing traditional lessons and sort of changing what they look like, changing their face. And one of the examples I talk about, and I mentioned actually in our little breakout group with Betsy last week, was, and I thought everybody had heard of it, but I was surprised that some of the people hadn't, because I actually got a couple emails afterwards about it, was there's a traditional lesson that is used in classrooms to teach kind of the intro, what is computer science, what is programming, and how kind of does it work at a very, very basic level. And they tell you to bring, make a peanut butter sandwiches, and you grab a couple of slices of bread. You basically have to figure out, you have one student instruct the other one on how to make a peanut butter sandwich in front of the whole class. And it becomes this big, disastrous, messy thing. So it's a fun activity. But for this audience, we talked about adapting it and making a taco instead. And so you have to bring, you have a taco shell, you have your taco meat. I've done it over lunch. I'll have students, like my first day of class, stay after and have lunch with me, and we'll assemble a taco. And then the next class will go in and we'll talk about what was your algorithm? And then we'll start breaking down what an algorithm is. Please, give me your set of steps. How much does a computer understand versus how much do you understand about assembling the taco? Did they understand that the meat should go in first, or did they put the lettuce in first? Does it make a difference? Does it change the way the taco tastes? And so we try to make it relevant to them. There are other examples, but that one is, I think, the most poignant one that illustrates just grabbing a basic idea and adapting it so that everybody understands what is in it. And everybody understands, who doesn't necessarily eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on a regular basis, and whose parents never really, bought that for them to eat at home. And maybe they've seen it at school, but it's just not something that is really an everyday thing for them. The other one that I've seen that I love is a basic salsa lesson. And any of those of you who dance, you can teach two different types of, there's multiple dance styles, but salsa is like one of the more complicated ones because it's not just about the footing. It has to do with your knees, it has to do with your hips, and it has to do with not bouncing your shoulders up and down and looking too gringo-like. And so you can break that down into steps, and actually students have a really good time. I watched actually this great video where one set of teachers was trying to teach another set of teachers how to do it, and they were using like footprints, and they had to try to do, akin to like a little video game, and they had a great time. They laugh, and for students, it's the same thing. You can bring it into your classroom. You can have them try to have one of them trace the steps that somebody else puts down. If you put the music on, does it change the way you move your feet? Does it change the way you move your hips and your knees? Does it help you? Does it not help you? Breaking it down into a protocol. How am I going to instruct you how to follow your steps? Is there a set way that we should communicate between us so that I can instruct you more clearly and make my instructions more understandable, so you can talk about protocols and algorithms and all of these things. It's a lot of fun, but those are the two other things that I thought were easy and fun that you could take back and you could do tomorrow without really, they're unplugged. They don't require a whole lot of equipment, just a little bit of imagination and the willingness to have a lot of crazy students moving around your room.
So Yolanda, do you have any room in your class for me to be a student? Because I would love to just experience it on the students' end. But Yolanda brings up a lot of points about looking at the curriculum we have and making it culturally relevant for them. And then also taking culture and sharing it with others, and how you got the other teachers to learn how to dance salsa. So thank you for sharing that. Yvonne, before I move on to Yvonne, this is what the document that we started last week at CSTA Engage. So everybody can add and even organize if you'd want to categorize them differently, so it makes more, it's a little more easier to find resources. We invite you to share and collaborate with us on this document that's going to continue to be added on throughout the year. But Yvonne, you ready?
Yes, I mean, I don't have anything in particular to share, but I do want to share something that I've been thinking about ever since we started talking about these sessions. And that is that when we say Hispanic Latinx, we sometimes maybe think of like a homogeneous group of students when we're not at all. And so I actually really like Yolanda's activities, because when you think of tacos, they may be students who build many different kinds of tacos, right? And so then they get to build their own taco, then they get to share what a taco means for maybe somebody who's from Mexico versus somebody who's from Venezuela. I don't know, same with like dancing, right? I mean, where I grew up in Mexico, we didn't necessarily dance salsa. I can teach you something else, but not salsa. But then I also like Betsy, because Betsy took something that was very like familiar to her own particular students, right? Regardless of their Latinx heritage. So I just had that in my mind to think about when we create activities and lessons for our students, to just think about the fact that yes, they may be all Latinx, but they're not just one homogeneous group of students.
It's a really fun way of, I mean, when you look at it, I was thinking about, you can introduce, just when I think about music, right? There's salsa, there's bachata, there's merengue, there's, I mean, there's like a huge genre of just like of anything. And every region like would have, or even like within families, they have preferences for, music or for foods or things like that. So I think it's a fun opportunity for them to like cross-pollinate even, and just teach each other about each other's culture also.
Awesome. I wanted to direct you all to another resource that was developed by San Francisco Unified, CS and SF. So in the resource document, there's a section that's titled Hispanic Heritage Month from #CSNSF. And if you go to this link, you'll see a ton. They have already a set of posters that can be printed or can be viewed by students online, that has different Hispanic Latinx influencers in computer science. And so these are ready to go for anybody, and they've shared it with the world. But what I like about this resource, if you go to this resource, this specific document, they have it both in English and Spanish. They also have a scavenger hunt that you can have with you can do with your students, where the students will have an assignment. They go back and they will read through, the bios to get information from the poster people. And they have that resource in English and in Spanish. So that's something I thought was really awesome. And then they also have a Padlet version of the scavenger hunt, so that it'll be easy for the kids to look for everything instead of having all these different links. And then lastly, they have a Kahoot quiz that's based on information that you would learn from reading about the Latinx influencers in computer science. So if there's something, a really quick, these are a ton of activities. This is another way that you can celebrate this Heritage Month with your students. And then there's also a ton of other stuff on here that we want to direct you to, and see what makes sense and what fits in whatever way you want to implement this celebration of Heritage Month. Is there anything else, ladies, that you wanted to add?
Can I just really quickly add and encourage all the teachers or parents to encourage their students to apply for the Aspirations in Computing Awards. They're awards for students in high school, students in college, and teachers. And all the info, like if you go all the way down to the document, you can find all of the info and the links.
Perfect. Thank you for remembering. Are there any questions that you want to ask our presenters?
Good. See, we answered every question they could ever have. They know everything now, and they're good, man. What can I say?
Yolanda, your Scratch telenovela is amazing. The one that you played was hilarious.
Wasn't it ridiculous? It's ridiculous. I was like, holy moly, who comes, you know, like, I can't believe I grew up watching this stuff.
No, that was, and then when Betsy came after you, Yvonne was talking about how she wants to do a whole scratch about AOC, which I thought was amazing how to put those two together. You know, both activities and getting them to do this extension. Okay, so if there's no questions, I wanted to thank our three presenters, Yolanda, Betsy, and Yvonne. Thank you so much for sharing. Remember, Yvonne is from TECHNOLOchicas, and they have videos and all these extension activities on their website that you'll find in the resource doc that it's already ready-made if you wanted to focus on female Latinx influencers. So that's something we want to also direct you to. And this resource, we really hope you guys add to it. We want to start this as a repository of all those resources that we're trying to gather, and then hopefully make it even more prettier so we can get it and push it out to more people so they can know that these resources exist, and that we can get more people to make resources. So if you are willing to share what you are creating, hey, this is we are a community of collaborators. This is how we solve problems. And one of the issues we have is we are not reaching a lot of kids. And so if we can get things that are more relevant for them, let's share what we make that's working in your settings, and let's hope that it spreads that kind of knowledge with our students. Muchas gracias, everybody. We have a few upcoming events. This Saturday, we have a summit, Cultivating Communities of Learners, on Saturday. Then on the 28th, if you're a new member, we invite you to check out everything that we have to offer as an organization. We hope you guys like us. Betsy came back, and we hope you join this family, Betsy, because you're our sister here, and you are paving the way in New York, and we hope that you continue to share that with us, because we want to be we want to celebrate your journey. And then lastly, our next professional learning series is at the end of this month. It's going to be focused on cybersecurity. We're preparing for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which is the month of October. And on this last slide, you'll see what we have lined up for the rest of this fall season for professional learning series. We do hope that you'll come back. We are going to focus next month. We're gonna do a feature on Native American Heritage Month, anti-bullying, and then accommodating students with disabilities, culture responsive instruction for holidays, and then we have specifically a special event on the 15th. Aside from it's Shayna's birthday, which is huge, we're so happy. We are going to have an opportunity to play as if we are the students exploring different platforms with each other, seeing if we want to try new things with our students. So thank you all for joining us, for taking time out of your schedule to come and learn about some ways that you can celebrate Hispanic Latinx Month in your classrooms and with your families. We hope you all have a great morning, afternoon, or evening. Thank you all for coming.